On the playoffs specifically, there's a ton of debate, and obviously between the SEC and the Big Ten, the ACC and the Big 12, thoughts on the 5-11 model and then the 4-4-2-2, 1-1-1-1, whatever it is, model. I definitely understand both arguments, and I'll give you mine here in a second. But before I either influence you or say too many things that like influence what is your take on maybe what's best for, let's say, the Big 12 and the ACC, and then just like what's best for college football in general when it comes to the playoff model arguments that we have right now?
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm going to have to think for a minute on the second part of it. For the Big 12 and ACC, that's easy because I say that's easy. I have come to a conclusion on that. I actually don't think it's easy because, one, you're choosing between a rock and a hard place if you are the Big 12 and the ACC there, particularly the Big 12, because neither one is a winning position. The obvious with the 4-4-2-2 is that you would be signing on the dotted line, we are half as good a conference as the SEC and Big 10. It would have your signature on it. And so for the future, you are capped. You're never getting beyond that, both in terms of perception, money. I would imagine when you're negotiating a TV deal, good luck ever getting a dime more than half of what the SEC or Big 10 are getting. And you've set a ceiling on yourself for the future. You just can't really do that. Now, if it gets forced on you because the Big 10 and the SEC are going to get their way and the SEC decides to acquiesce to the Big 10, well, that's one thing, but it wasn't you that did that willingly yourself. So you just can't limit yourself like that. I heard a BYU fan gave me a really good analogy for that, which was, hey, BYU could have joined the Mountain West for a while there. They really wanted to be in a conference, felt like that would be advantageous to them and it would really help them. And there were a lot of disadvantages to being independent that made it tough. But they waited it out, and now they're a Big 12 school, which is obviously a step above the Mountain West. Had they signed up as a Mountain West school, you wouldn't have been as attractive to other conferences because you would have just signed, we'll take this. This is what we are. They decided to bet on themselves. It's basically a bet on yourself type of move. However, it's obvious that the 5+11 is not, in terms of how many Big 12 teams will make the playoff over the next 6 years. If you're doing the math that way, it's clear that they would get more in under 4-4-2-2 if you're getting 2 automatically every single year than they would 5+11. I understand those like Joel Klatt and Josh Pate that will say, hey, the risk is that the SEC is going to get 7 teams in every year and you're going to get 1 and just fall further and further behind in terms of perception. I understand it. All of that is very much a risk. That is very much possible. But I think you got to think way bigger picture than even just that right now. And you just can't be the ones to say, hey, we are literally only half of this league and that's all we will ever be. Especially, Brett Yormark's a guy that thinks big. He thinks big. So you can't limit yourself in doing that. And it's similar for the ACC, but obviously I think a little bit different here because you do have bigger brands that are more capable. I mean, look, Clemson, a lot of people think Clemson may win the national title this year. We know that Florida State should have been in the playoff just last season, 2023, should have been in the playoff, right? So Miami, still a big brand, obviously perennial underachievers, but still a very big brand there too. They've got better opportunities. They had 2 teams in the playoff last year with SMU emerging now too. But you're still somewhat in the same boat as the Big 12 as far as that goes. I think just a little less risk with 5+11. You would feel better about your odds of getting multiple teams in there. As far as the good of college football, man, it's hard for me to think that any of this is really good for the greater good of college football and the overall health of the sport. Because if you do go 4-4-2-2, playing games certainly do sound exciting, but I think there is something to what the SEC coaches say there. We're going to start putting too many games on. What will be diminishing returns on the quality of football we get if we start adding more and more games? Get too overzealous with that. I don't really like that. I don't like that we have realigned the sport to where we now have just 2 power leagues and we're going to codify and solidify that they're that much better than everybody else. Auto bids as a concept in general, I don't think is the greatest thing in the world for the sport. But then there's a counter argument that, again, the Josh Pates of the world will tell you, it's better if it's 4-4-2-2 and you have playing games and you have an SEC team. Basically, his argument is that it will keep engagement higher for end of the year, November games in the SEC, because a team could have just 1 loss at that point and be if we slip too much here in November, we may have to play in a playing game versus if we keep the intensity high right now, we could avoid that play-in game. So I know a lot of people would tell you 4-4, 2-2 would be much better for the overall sport. I'm just someone, I can't get into the mindset of like what it means from a power two perspective. I'm always thinking about everybody else, and I just have to look at the whole thing right now and say, I don't love really where either one of those two is going to go.
Yeah, no. And I think that, so I'd never heard it put like you just did, how in practicality, from a year to year perspective, if I heard you right, I don't want to put words in your mouth. From a year to year perspective, yeah, the 4-4-2-2 probably gets the ACC and Big 12 more teams in on a year to year basis. I don't, obviously very biased as a Florida State guy, I don't trust the committee to do the right thing at all. Right. Yeah. I think when there's a big, when BYU's sitting there at 10-2 and Alabama sitting there at 9-3, the Big 12 is screwed there. Like if it's a 5-11 model, I just think, the Big 12 is good, and the ACC too, right? Because we've already seen it. If it's Alabama at 9-3 and Florida State at 10-2 or Miami at 10-2, I think we know how that's going to go down. From a year to year standpoint, I do think the 4-4-2-2 would be better. But you're right. It is admitting we are half this conference. I wonder about a 4-4-3-3 compromise. Yeah. If admitting to 75% is more feasible. I would almost wonder if you could put a look in of, hey, if we achieve this certain metric, we'll reevaluate. Do I think that the ACC Big 12 could achieve whatever that metric is? Probably not, but at least you're leaving that door open, for later. But yeah, like there is no good option. And the reason why, to really pare this down to my overall thoughts on the playoff, the reason why is because there aren't 16 teams. We're fighting a battle that is really unnecessary. In my opinion, there are not 16 teams that can win a national championship. And so we're fighting over these bids, and it's all money, right? I get it. You get more money, the more teams you get in and all these things. But we're fighting a battle, to me, that is very irrelevant. You look at like this year, how many teams can truly go out and win a national championship this year? I see the ACC maybe has one or two if everything clicks really well with Miami. The Big 12, maybe everything clicks really well with Sam Leavitt. Is the Big 12 maybe at one? Texas Tech maybe would be your second one with the money that they've put in. The SEC has three, maybe four, and the Big 10 probably has three as well. Like you're talking about like 8, 9 teams at most. And we're being somewhat generous there, saying like if everything clicks right with with Texas Tech and everything clicks right, in all reality, it's probably like 5. It's probably like Georgia, Texas. I mean, you're counting on LSU to finally put it together, or Alabama to rebound and put it together. You're counting on Penn State to do something they've never done. Maybe throw Notre Dame in because they were right there too. You're talking like 5 or 6 teams. And so we're fighting over like, man, who really deserves to be that 13, 14, 15 team just so they can get in, right? And so like that, to me, that's maybe the most frustrating part is we're fighting this big battle over something that from a year-to-year perspective, you get more money by making the playoff. I don't know that it impacts the grand scheme of who's winning the title that year, which is what every fan really wants, right? You need to be excellent or elite to win a title, and I just don't think there are that many teams that really exist in college football, and there never have been. There never have been 14 teams that could win a title, and so, but we fight about it because this is the situation we're in.
Well, this is really good stuff. All right, first of all, don't tell any of this to Eli Drinkwitz, who wants like 30 teams in.
Get out, man.
Abstain him from the conversation. I hate that idea, and I'm with you. Like, I will say this for the Big 12 and ACC. Like, I thought best case scenario was when I started seeing this rift that we opened up talking about between the Big 10 and the SEC now, where the SEC isn't on board with the Big 10. I was like, hey, if it just keeps kicking the can down the road, we keep kicking the can down the road on playoff, and it's the 12-team playoff for 26. Hey, see if you can keep them spread out so it's a 12-team playoff for 27. The more you keep it the same, you don't have to go into this agreement where you agree to be half of the other leagues, and then at the same time, there are less bids out there for those two leagues to scoop up and further lap you. So keeping it at a 12-team playoff is, I think, a win-win, honestly, for the Big 12 and the ACC there. So do that. But yeah, in general, it's kind of the way college football always has been. There are a group of 5 to 10 teams every year certainly at least since like the mid 2000s to late 2000s, we've been in this environment where there really are only a few teams that can actually win this thing every single year. And outside of that, like, who cares? Like, that's not, I am a guy who is very firm. Like, the playoff, obviously I care. I'm a college football fan, right? I care. I'm going to watch it. But I care about the regular season. Like, that's what's always made college football great. That's what makes it so much different from professional sports. And so there is this element of we give so much oxygen to the playoff conversation and how that's going to go, because it does have really intense ramifications for the rest of the sport, but we're kind of just missing the mark, because the best thing this sport has to offer is an incredible regular season with regional rivalries that are great. And we've already broken up so many of these regional rivalries through conference realignment. Like, that's what's so alarming about where this is all going, and why, yes, it is very dumb that we waste as much time as we do on this playoff. So, like, yeah, just keep it at 12. That's fine. Let's make sure that the regular season, we can preserve as much of it as we possibly can, because we've already lost so much of it, man. I was just having this conversation as a K-State fan. I was having this conversation with someone this weekend. I'm like, it was over Missouri. We were talking about Mizzou, and K-State played at Mizzou in 2023. It was the first time they had played them in 12 years after, you'd played every year for like 100 plus years. It's like, man, I miss that. Like, I miss playing Nebraska. Like, there's still beef there. Like, that's what makes college sports great and fun. And we've stripped it of so much of that. And now we care so much about this playoff, which is fun, but it is not nearly what the regular season is. So I'm totally on board with you. If we could just keep it at 12, I'd be more than okay with that. And again, it's the Big Ten that really has pushed the expansion more than anybody, because they've got this Mondo conference, this 18-team conference that they feel like they need to, try to scoop up as many bids with. So it's all frustrating just where we're at in general. Big picture.
Yeah, you talk about the regular season. We'll wrap up with this, but I think about Tennessee last year. A team that they competed in '98, or they won it in '98. And since then has been largely irrelevant, right? Tennessee just not done anything really on the national stage. 15 years ago, Tennessee goes out and goes 10-2 with a win over Alabama, and obviously beats Vandy too. And yeah, they slipped up against Arkansas and they dropped the game in Athens. But you're talking like 10, 15 years ago, Tennessee goes 10-2 and goes to a BCS Bowl, or a New Year's Six, I guess later 10 years ago was New Year's Six, and has a good showing there, maybe wins an 11th game. Their fans feel like that was there's all this optimism for next season, and there's excitement because you're growing towards something. You had a wonderful regular season, and Tennessee fans sitting at 10-2 aren't thinking, man, we just got our head stomped in by Ohio State in the playoff. Tennessee, nobody thought. Could they have maybe played better against Ohio State and won that game if Ohio State didn't go on the crazy run? Sure, right? Won one playoff game. But you ask a Tennessee fan, like, what would you prefer? To back it up 15 years and go 10-2 and have a chance in a BCS game against not Ohio State, because they'd have played in the Sugar Bowl, and it'd have been against, actually, I guess, a Big 12 team in the Sugar Bowl. But, or you're going to go 10-2 and feel like your entire season was a failure because you got your head stomped in when you played in the playoff. And so, yeah, what it did was it just completely eradicated the great regular season that Tennessee just had. Florida State, I think, in my lifetime, has played in 6 national championships. Outside of every year but that, if you won 10 games and you beat Miami and Florida, you were the kings of that year, right? Like, you were thrilled with that. Several times. I think Florida State has beaten Miami and Florida in the same year in my lifetime, like, I don't know, 11 or 12 times. Like, it's happened. It doesn't happen a ton, but it happens enough, right? All 3 teams have been pretty good at times. And so I think that when you've gotten rid of the regular season importance, which we ultimately have done, it is frustrating to look back at, like, every season that doesn't end up in a championship feels like a failure for everyone now. And it didn't used to feel that way, right? Like, maybe Notre Dame doesn't feel that way. Maybe Penn State making a Final Four feels pretty good about their year too. But for everyone else, the regular season, you're right, it is getting stripped away. And the things that we loved about it, they're just becoming less important. Winning 10 games, like, in Florida State, obviously with how they played last year, it wouldn't be that big. It would be a big miracle. But, like, if they were to go 9-3 this year with wins against both their rivals, like, in an alternate universe, or even really just 15 years ago, you just said, amazing, great year. 9-3, you go win your bowl game, you get to that 10th win, you beat both your rivals. You weren't perfect, but only one team was this year. So yeah, that is frustrating that we've gotten away from that. And as we continue to expand the playoff, I understand Pate's take. I don't even necessarily disagree with him. Like in theory, a lot of that makes sense with keeping things, more relevant later in the year, but it'll never be the same.
Yeah, and so much of it is, I just want to emphasize again, like the regional rivals part of it. I think it's a really important piece of it that you bring up, like beating Florida and Miami if you're Florida State there. Like that matters a lot. If Florida State goes and joins the Big Ten and you lose the ability to play both of those games every year, I mean, that takes some of the edge off of what you're doing. It's just not the same. And we've lost a lot of that across the country. We're certainly always in jeopardy of losing even more of that. Thankfully, we're seeing some of these come back in like non-conference games. But even then, it's like if it comes back as a non-conference game, it doesn't hold quite the same weight as it would in the conference. So I hate what we've done. And I think another good example is you were talking about, like, which is it's such a perfect example of Tennessee and how differently their season is viewed versus the way it would have been back in the early 2000s. I look at like TCU in 2022, TCU makes it all the way to the national championship game. And yes, like I realized it was a historic beatdown that they took at the hands of a historically good Georgia team there. But nobody talks about TCU winning a playoff game anymore. Like that season feels like it's been largely forgotten nationally by a lot of people. And it just casts this shadow over the entire season. Whereas, back in the day, TCU, if they weren't playing for a national championship, if we had the BCS, for instance, right, and they're not playing for a national championship, they lose the Big 12 championship game to K-State, they're still going to, Fiesta Bowl, I guess, if we're talking Big 12 back in the 2000s. You get a chance to win that game, feel really good about yourself. They beat Michigan in the Fiesta Bowl, I guess, that year anyway, so you'd get the 12th win, feel really good, and be like, hey, man, that's an awesome season. Like, that's great. We flirted with a national championship. That's an awesome season. But instead here, it just turns into this giant referendum on the conference and TCU's program. And it's just, I think there's a lot of negativity that's come with the playoff in college football for some of the good stuff that we've gotten. But what was the chief complaint last year from Lane Kiffin in SEC country? That it wasn't competitive enough. A lot of the games haven't been that great anyway that we've been treated to in the playoffs. So what are we ultimately really doing all of this for?
Yeah. I remember in 2016, we went 9-3 and we played Michigan in the Orange Bowl, and I went down to it and we won but I think we won by 1 point and scored in the last minute. And it was just bowls, bowl season used to mean something. The regular season used to mean something. You used to get excited about winning bowl games. And now I'm not going to say they don't mean anything. I know Iowa State was jacked this year to beat Miami in that comeback. And there are some fun ones. But I just, we are losing a lot of the, what made college football great. And it's still great. I'm not one of the, we still both have YouTube channels to cover it. But there is definitely a line of demarcation where it is not as great as it was. Still really great. It's still my favorite sport on the planet. It's not close. But unfortunately we've moved off of some of the things that made it great. So John, where can people follow you, man? Where can they find your work and get more of what you do?
Yeah, appreciate that. Just my name on YouTube, John Kurtz, JohnKurtz. To find the show, live shows Wednesdays and Sundays, also videos posted there throughout the week. And if you're a Big 12 fan, check out my Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, ofbnews.com, to sign up for that, ofbnews.com. And you can follow me on Twitter at JL Kurtz.
Awesome. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate you, man.
Anytime.